Hi, I'm Norm Rodrigue, and I'm producing short video documentaries about Augusta's mid-20th century restaurants and bars. One of these, located at 53 Coney Street, was American Lunch, an iconic mill bar serving Augusta's several mills and shoe shops. American Lunch was owned and operated for years by Alice Pullen and was, and still is, referred to as Alice's by many of its former patrons. American Lunch first appeared in Augusta's business directory in 1948, shortly after the end of World War II. Over the following 3 decades, Augusta's mills were booming, operating 24 hours a day with 3 shifts. Mill workers from Statler Tissue, Bates, and several shoe shops visited their favorite mill bars before or after their shifts, providing a steady, predictable customer base. In the 60s and 70s, these mills and shoe shops entered a period of economic decline due to foreign competition and relocation to southern states, resulting in layoffs and closures. The days of Augusta's mill bars were numbered. These economic impacts greatly affected mill bars such as American Lunch, and many closed, particularly along Water Street. In the mid-70s, American Lunch was acquired by Peggy Cameron and her son Jack, longtime Augusta residents. Jack transformed American Lunch from a mill bar to a popular hangout for Augusta's baby boomers, giving it a new life. Over the next 5 years, American Lunch became one of Augusta's most popular live music and sports bars. Let's hear from some of the people who owned and operated American Lunch and the many patrons who considered American Lunch Augusta's version of Cheers.
Well, American Lunch was in today's world, it's a dive bar. It was on Coney Hill, but it was really a working man's bar. Alice, a woman named Alice, owned it. It was open from 6 in the morning to 1 o'clock at night. And Alice was the only person there, except she had a cook who came in to do lunches. So it was a long day for her, and she wasn't a young woman.
American Lunch, many happy memories there over decades, actually. But the one story I remember was in college. I came back home for a holiday break, and I brought one of my roommates with me who was from Detroit, and I wanted him to see a little local color. So I took him to the American Lunch on a Friday afternoon. We sat at the bar drinking a beer, and over in the window seat next to the hill, there was a couple, a man and a woman, and they were talking and having a drink. And all of a sudden I see this guy walk by in the window, and he stops and he sees the couple sitting there, and he gets a bad look on his face, storms into American Lunch, goes over to that table, picks up one of the bottles of Budweiser from the table, and slams it and breaks it over the head of the guy. The woman, I don't know what happened to her, she took off, and the guy's there, he's bleeding all over the place. Obviously the fellow walking by had caught his girlfriend with somebody else, and Alice, without missing a beat, comes out of the back with a mop and mops it up, and 5 minutes later all was well. And my roommate never got over that story.
First time I went to American Lunch or Alice's was, I think it was summer of 1968. It was the first summer I'd worked at the paper mill. I was working in the paper room, and third shifts, get out at 7 o'clock, and so I went with these 2 guys. I'd never been there before, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll go to American Lunch," or they referred to it as Alice's. Went there, got there probably 10 after 7, something like that. And one guy went there because he wanted to cash his check. Alice would cash the checks from paper mill workers, and what she charged, a dime?
10 cents.
Yeah, 10 cents to cash the check. She always had plenty of cash. And these guys, sit down up at on the stools at the bar and order a Kruger draft and a pickled egg, and that's kind of what they had for breakfast. And I think I'll have a Coke, thanks. I mean, it was a little much for me. But then I became much more attuned to the culture there at American Lunch, and spent a couple days there, here and there.
And we used to get to the mill, lunch break, we get an hour. Billy'd pull up in his convertible outside, we'd punch him out. We'd all jump in the convertible, run down to Alice's, 5, 6 beers, back in the convertible, back to work. How we got away with that is beyond me. Basically burgers was and I loved their burgers. Arlene was the cook, a little short lady, nice girl. But they served a good burger, no question about it. And of course, they had pickled eggs and all that stuff besides. But
Yeah, I think they, you
you could get a meal if you wanted to.
yeah, I mean, from the guys in the mill bought a lot of burgers in that place over
Well,
the
they get
years.
meal, if you work a double, you get meal
Yeah.
tickets.
Yeah,
And she'd take care of the meal tickets.
yeah. One of the things I remember about that place, when I don't know if after Alice sold it, they retained it in the jukebox, but for years they had a classic that you know, sometimes one of the regulars would have to go over and play it, and it was a country song called 3 6-packs, 2 arms, and a jukebox is all I have to remember you. That says it all.
A good friend of mine got married. I was an usher in the wedding. A group of us were in there early before the wedding, having a couple of beers, and I still had on my hat on my tuxedo and everything, and I'm getting ready to go, and she said, "You come here." I said, "What?" And she said, "You're all rumpled." So she takes me over and she straightened out my cummerbund, she straightened out my jacket, she made sure my bow tie was straight. She said, "Okay, you can go to the wedding now." I mean, just like Mom. And eventually a guy named Jack Cameron bought it, and Jack was our age, so Jack sponsored bowling leagues out of there, and Jack sponsored softball team, and you know, it was a lot of a real fun place to go because you knew everybody there. A lot of the working guys didn't come there anymore, but it was a younger crowd, and by young I mean 25 to 35 crowd. And he brought in entertainment. Alice had never had entertainment, but Jack knew a guy named Archie, David Archibald, and she said, "Hey, he's a pretty good singer." He said, "Maybe I'll get him in there." So Archie started playing on Friday nights, and within 2 weeks the place was mobbed every Friday night to see Archie. And you know, 30 years later, people still get in line to go see Archie. He's quite a character.
How did your mother decide to buy that?
Well, I think I said I need a job. We had the restaurant, and Eileen did she had burgers and salads, and she'd make steak, stuffed cabbage.
Great homemade meals, yeah. Like
Breakfast.
roast pork with potatoes and gravy and a vegetable. It was so
Yeah, it was
good.
all home cooked meals. Just happened to call Archie, because I stayed up with him, stayed in touch with him. And then the timing of it was perfect in that I called him. I said, "We just bought a bar up here in Augusta." So he came in. I do remember that like yesterday. It was right in the afternoon when he was there. And we
Did he
went
drive from Texas up?
Yeah. Man, he started playing in the afternoon, and you could hear it down to City Hall, for goodness sakes, that he started playing. He says, "I'm ready to go." And then we had live entertainment.
So I was working in Beaumont, Texas, about 1976, and I left my job in the shipyard and started playing some music down there. And my friend Jack Cameron called me up and says, "Hey Archie, I bought a bar up here and we need some music. Can you come up and play?" So I went up and played.
And then he got, with him was my brother started playing Bruce, and then he got Chuck Hines, and there was a guy, Bobby Castengay.
Yep.
You got
Played the bass.
Peter Johnson.
Petey Johnson, yeah. Petey would have a cigarette sticking out of the...
Yeah, and man, they'd start playing, and the place was rocking, and oh my goodness.
And there was no place for a band, so
No.
they would play right in front of the door to the kitchen, so you'd have to go around them every time to get through to the kitchen, and there was no room, but
Yeah.
beautiful. It was a beautiful thing.
And then we'd meet there, a lot of people, when you met with friends, you'd say, "Well, where are we going to go? Let's go to American lunch, we'll meet there, and then we'll make a plan for what we do from here on out." I mentioned that we did have a wedding there. Dickie Pullen and Roxanne got married in City Hall, and their reception was at American lunch. He said, "Everything's on, I'll pay for everything," and we cleaned out the entire place of alcohol. There wasn't a cold beer left. There wasn't a beer left in the place by the end of the day.
Somebody organized the skate.
Yeah, that's right.
Across the street.
Yeah, there was.
Somebody organized an event. We all started at the bar, then we all went across the street and skated. You stayed at the bar, but it was a ton.
I remember that.
Ton of people.
Yeah. I started working, but back then it was mostly just between being a sports bar and a mill bar. A lot of the people from the mill came in off shift work, and they'd come in, so we'd be ready for them, and then from there it just sort of kept evolving, and of course sports was the thing. We had a basketball team, softball team,
Bowling.
football team, bowling, and that's where people would meet before we went to any of the games that we had.
I was president of the bowling league one year. We went to Boston, rented that bus. Everybody was on that trip, and me and Tommy Daniels and Punky. About the 8th inning, right at the 8th inning, they were getting beat 5-2, Oakland A's, and we said, well, let's go to the Cask and Flagon. So we headed to the Cask and Flagon, and then we hear this. I said, somebody hits one, somebody did something, and looked up the sidewalk, and there was a pack of kids running towards us. We were on Lansdowne Street. I said, somebody yanked one, and it's between us and those kids. Come on, let's go. And we got it, and I ended up with that ball. I got the ball. It was a 3-run shot. Dewey Evans hit off Raleigh fingers. Tied up the game in the 8th, and they won it in the 9th. Can you believe it? That was the bowling trip. That must have been 1980, I guess. And I was actually, I went back into the game and tried to get Dewey to sign the ball, because he was doing an interview right in front of the dugout, and I was hanging on the top of the dugout. I'm going, Dewey, I got your ball, sign it, sign it. He ran right underneath me. So we stopped at the Golden Banana on the way back, and what was her name? One of the strippers signed it and kissed it. Oh, love you, Ricky Hart. Ricky Hart, H-A-R-T with E with a E on the end. I gave that ball to Jared, Punky's son.
It was the place to go.
Yeah.
You know, if you were going to go out on a Friday night, Thursday night, Friday night,
Yeah.
Saturday night, there was always going to be somebody there.
It just didn't seem to be, I don't know if it just came to be right at that period of time. And then closing night was what the article, American Lunch, Good Night,
The end of an era.
Bye-bye American Lunch, or
Yes,
whatever
bye-bye American lunch.
Scoop Hawkins had in the article there.
1, 2, 3. The barroom smoke was heavy as the gamblers took their places. Big Jack and the wily Studley, serious on their faces. I sang in Redneck Mother and the TV set was on. The Sox getting beat 5-2 and the belts were on the line. Liz Bird and the cat on the pinball machine. Toma, Tuna, Laguna, and Punk. Couple of roosters, Crab and the Bear. King, Cookie, Needles and Tunk. The mightiest might of all the mites. Captain and I am the Quill. Queen of the Calumet Club, singing hello to Mary Lou. Those Thursday nights, no, I never seen a finer bunch. Those Thursday nights at American Lunch. A scurvy had the duck walk down, Weep was right behind. Bones and Denny, Cass and Crow, woolly moly on their mind. Vashon swinging his pelvis, he's grooving like a big rock star. Doing his very best Elvis, blue suede shoes there on the bar. Bobby Cass, Bruce and Petey, Buggy, Bernie, Burnsy and Beatty, Eclair Crusher, Smiles and Hawk, cycles vroom on the sidewalk. Tread came by to say hello, he left with Linda Angelo. Softball weekend, Rollins pitching, cops come by, they's looking for Strickland. Now it's Friday morning, 8 a.m. Big Jack's back for more. Cigarettes will stay a beer, hit you in the face as soon as you crack the door. But the more empty bottles and butts you find, thinking that's alright. 'Cause Arlene's counting them beans and a $900 night. Now mopping neath the tables, butts and bottle caps. Face down on the floor, a card with a wily Studley sack. This song has no ending, for this is where she starts. When he turned it over, he found the Queen of Hearts. Those Thursday nights led to the Golden Banana in Fenway Park. Those Thursday nights, yeah, Dewey's home run and Ricky Hart. Thursday nights, and Arlene Burger and a pickled egg. Those Thursday nights, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Peg. Those Thursday nights, no, I've never seen a finer bunch. Those Thursday nights at American lunch.